Well, some people got rain today. Philadelphia sets a new record for the longest dry spell that on record for them. New York City, on the other hand, got its first measurable rainfall of the month, and that means that this will not be the first month in New York City weather history where it doesn't rain. So we'll put it all in. We'll put it all together and make it make sense tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Which, if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, it's really easy. We have an Amazon referral link pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this podcast. And if you shop on Amazon, use our referral link. Shop till you drop, and you'll get your stuff. Amazon will throw us some coin back out of their pocket, and it's a great way to show us some support, and we appreciate it very, very much. So shop the affiliate link on Amazon. So you work so hard to get a streak like this, and you get it wiped away with a 1/100th of an inch of rain at in New York City between um, 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. I don't know if they've gotten any since.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Joe, it's raining,
Oh, you
and it's not.
practically have a flash flood warning up by you.
I mean, it's not sprinkling or anything. It is raining, a steady light rain. And the last I looked, and that was about 10 or 15 minutes ago, my rain gauge had 4/100ths of an inch of rain. More rain and more precipitation I've seen here in many, many days. And the rain that they got at Central Park, just few renegade or isolated blips on the radar. But what I'm talking about right now for what's happening outside my house right now
All
is a
right.
pretty solid area of rain that has moved down from the north and west and is covering much of the Hudson Valley, again, with generally a light, steady rain, which will linger for a while. This is the warm front that will eventually lead to a couple of abnormally warm days coming up tomorrow and on Thursday. But in any case, it's wet out there.
It is indeed, and there were some places have already uh, hit made some records today. So, for example, uh, Philadelphia today, it's the record longest streak of consecutive days with no measurable precipitation. It has run from the last time it rained in Philadelphia was September 28th. Only a trace of rainfall since then, which occurred on September 29th and again on October 24th. No measurable rain has been recorded so far this month through October 28th. 30 consecutive days have passed without measurable precipitation. They're not going to get anything tonight. So that sets an all-time station record. The old record was 29 consecutive days 150 years ago. October 11th through November the 8th, 1874, was Philadelphia's longest dry streak. And I've got a few other places where the fruit, uh, apparently for Philadelphia, the fruit was kind of low, uh, was low hanging fruit. Uh, the, hang on, I'm just going to check something here. So I got a few other cities. Wilmington, Delaware, the record is 30 days. I mean, right now they're at 30 days. Okay, in Wilmington, Delaware, the record there is 34, 1909. Okay, was that record was set. And by the way, it was set on February the 9th. Was the day it ended. So this was a dry January into early February in that particular streak. Georgetown, Delaware, 34 days, and that was back in 2001. In Trenton, the all-time record is 38 days. Hold on, I got to look close here. 38 days in 1903. It ended on May 23rd, 1903. And for Atlantic City, they're at 26 days right now. The record there, 1995. 34 days without rain, and that ended on September 15th. So it's very interesting how all these areas have different times of the year where they had the consecutive dry day record set.
Well, I will tell you that here's a year that has not come up into the conversation up until right now, 1973. Up until today in 1973, 0.03 inches of rain had fallen in October. I mean, that was another very, very dry month. But the dike had to break eventually, and it did on this day in 1973. A heavy all day rain that amounted to 3.67 inches of rain, a record for the date. Now, consider this: first 27 days of October, only 3/100ths of an inch of rain fell at Central Park. Then all of a sudden, on this day in 1973, a cloud burst and almost 4 inches of rain falling in one single day. That took care of even the mention of October 1973 being unusually dry. Now, I should point out, and you mentioned it, Joe, 0.01, 1/100th of an inch of rain fell today at Central Park. If nothing happens between now and the end of the month, unless there's a shower that manages to make it down into Central Park between now and midnight tonight, if that holds, this will still go down in the record books as the all-time driest month. The Up until now, the all-time driest month recorded at Central Park was June 1949. They had 2/100ths of an inch of rain. So far this October of 2024, 1/100th of an inch of rain. So if we want that record, we're going to have to hope that it doesn't rain anymore at Central Park for the remainder of the month. Obviously, the next few hours will be critical because, again, it's raining steadily here and it could very well work its way south down to Central Park. But if nothing happens tonight, we've got the record because
Right.
there's nothing coming our way tomorrow or Halloween Thursday or Friday. So
Well,
it
Friday's November
Friday's
1st,
November
so
1st. So
so you
the
just
next
have to
couple
get
of
to
days,
midnight Thursday night.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The driest stretch in New York City records. Thank you, Kevin J. Walsh, who's a regular poster on my Facebook page, um, commenter, I should say. The driest stretch in New York City was from October 9th to November 21st, 1924, 43 days, exactly 1 century ago. Zero point zero 0.01 inches of rain um, with fell in that stretch with a trace now and then. I'm sorry, the record was broken on it's got 0.01. I think that's what he meant here. That's the longest dry stretch. And for snow lovers, you'd be happy to know that in January of 1925, they had almost 28 inches of snow for the month and 5.2 inches of total precip. So you can hang your hat on that. It's almost certitude that it was going to repeat itself, isn't it, Joe?
And this date, by the way, of October 29th, this date was a bad luck day weather-wise over this past decade. For example, on this date in 2011, we had an intense nor'easter that lashed the area with high winds and an outrageously early snowfall. In fact, there was 2.9 inches of heavy wet snow that accumulated in Central Park, by far and away the most to ever fall in October. And indeed, while almost 3 inches fell in Central Park, in Newark, of all places, 5.2 inches of snow fell. And in my vicinity here in Putnam Valley, we had 14 inches of heavy, heavy, wet snow. Total liquid precipitation from that storm in 2011 was 2 inches. Remarkably, believe it or not, as early as that snowfall was in 2011, the next measurable snow would not come for another 12 weeks, when on January 21st, 2012, 4.3 inches of snow fell. Now, that was in 2011. Exactly 1 year later, unbelievably, an even more devastating storm fell, Hurricane or Nor'easter Sandy, striking between noon and midnight, and it more than lived up to its hype. Although the rain wasn't the issue, less than an inch of rain fell at Central Park. 60 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts and record storm surge wreaking havoc on New York transportation, the power grid. Not only did the storm surge strike at high tide, but during a full moon of all, it was like the perfect storm, resulting in flooding that had never before been experienced in Manhattan. Now, 5 years after Sandy, on the fifth anniversary, an intense nor'easter again lashed New York City with gusty winds and all day rain that amounted to just over 3 inches, more rain than had fallen in the past or previous 60 days in 2017, and the biggest rainstorm of the year, passing the rainstorm of May 2nd by just 1/100th of an inch. And lastly, on this day, October 29th, the remnants of Hurricane Zeta, which struck the Gulf Coast the previous night, combined with the energy from a winter storm that struck the southern Rockies and plains early in the week, resulting in a rainy, raw day here in the mid Atlantic region. Rain started in New York at around 7 in the morning, continued until midday on the 30th, the next day. 1.5 inches of rain fell today. Another 2/3 of an inch fell the following morning, and the rain fell heaviest from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. today, with nearly an inch measured. And after the rain, lovely gusty winds of 25 to 30 miles per hour moved in. So again, in the last 10 or 12 years, this date has been noted for, if you want to put your money down on a day that likely would have been a day that would have brought lots of wet weather or lots of stormy weather, this was the day, October the 29th. We had everything thrown at us: snow, rain, wind, you name it, we've had it from 2011 up until 2020, with the remnants again of a hurricane.
Today's your birthday. Happy birthday. Just to end it on a nice note. Welcome everybody on the chat board tonight, and those of you who are new to the show or watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're normally here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., but this is an abbreviated week because I have a wedding, not mine, my daughter, and I'm leaving tomorrow for Maryland, Joe. I'm going to Maryland. There's no show, just to go over the schedule. So there's no show tomorrow night. We'll see about Thursday, depending on what I'm not doing or doing. Okay. There might or might not be a show. And then after that, the next show we'll have will be next Monday, the day before Election Day. So just mark that down. Turn your notifications on so you won't miss us. And if you like tonight's show, by all means, hit the like button. So yeah, this is a puny little system, really, and it's just a warm front marking the leading edge of some very warm air that's coming up the eastern seaboard. It's not particularly humid air, by the way. It's actually rather dry. Not a whole lot of moisture around anywhere in the east. But you can see the clouds across New York State and in New England. That little pearl there in the cloud cover probably marks the edge of that warm front that's pushing eastward. So once that goes by, temperatures are going to be not really going very far tonight. And then we're setting up for two very warm days, Wednesday and Thursday. And I think Thursday, Joe, will probably see highs up a lot of areas in the low 80s with some records that are going to go by the boards for Halloween.
There's no question that the Hudson Valley record, the Westchester County Airport, the record for them on Thursday, laughably, 72 set back in 1999. So that should go by early afternoon, and thereafter it's all gravy. I don't know how much higher we're going to go. Actually, if it's Westchester Airport, they tend to get a light breeze from off of Long Island Sound, so they may very well get no higher than 74, 75. But for inland areas like Poughkeepsie or Montgomery in Orange County, yeah, 80 or maybe even low 80s is certainly not out of the question. So it's going to be a very well. And I'll talk about Friday, Joe. Friday, yeah, even after the cold front moves through and may bring us a shower early Friday morning, first day of November. Once the skies clear Friday afternoon, temperatures are still going to be rather high for this time of the year, probably getting into at least the 70 to 75 degree range. The big drop in temperature behind that Friday front will probably come on Saturday when temperatures may very well, in spite of bright sunshine, not get out of the 50s. So a big cool down coming for the weekend, but it looks like it's going to be just downright balmy beginning tomorrow and lasting through the balance of the week.
We do have some weather going on in the west, in the Rockies, where we have some cold and some snow, because that's where the trough is right now. It's deep trough in the western part of the United States, and we are also beginning to set the table for what could be a rather interesting severe weather event for Wednesday. We actually have some action going on this evening. You see this narrow strip of clouds running up from northwest Texas northeastward into Iowa, and that is uh, likely the forerunners, the setting up of some severe storms for tomorrow. Here's the radar in the northeast. Some heavier downpours in upstate New York. You go up to from about I-90 and points northward. You're seeing some heavy downpours there. The rain lightens up, but as you said, it's steady down by you in the lower Hudson Valley. Just cuts off right north of New York City and Long Island, and
Right.
it's moving mostly in an east-southeast direction into New England. So that will push to the east. Nothing on the radar until you get back into the Dakotas, where we've got some rain and showers there. And you can sort of see a little bit of a twist here back through Wyoming and western Colorado, and that's the shortwave trough that's going to be setting off some potential thunderstorms and severe weather for tomorrow. Now, overnight, there is a strip of marginal risk western Oklahoma, central Kansas into southeastern Nebraska. But tomorrow, we have enhanced risk of severe weather in eastern Kansas and western Missouri, which includes Kansas City and Topeka. We've slight risk pushes up a little bit north into Iowa and the marginal risk into southern Wisconsin. There is an area of 10% tornado risk. So there is EF2 or higher tornado risk for eastern Kansas for tomorrow, Miss Fowlerite. So pay attention, okay? And that's in that 10% risk zone. So pretty rough day. It's been so quiet from all weather standpoints. And now, of course, with the deep trough in the west, we're seeing some severe weather action. And also, next 7 day rainfall amounts are going to be rather substantial across Oklahoma, eastern and southeastern Kansas, western and north central Missouri. That orangish area represents 5 to 7 inches of potential rainfall in that zone. And you've got 2.5 inch rain amounts or more extending all the way up into northern Wisconsin. So this is a pretty vibrant area of rain that's covering the southern plains and the Mississippi and Missouri River valleys up and down, but none of that coming to the east. Just a couple of hundreds in southern New England, front end loaded for tonight, perhaps. No rain from New York City, south and west through the Carolinas, through Virginia, the Carolinas to Georgia to Florida, except the East Coast, a few hundreds there, and some heavy rain action going on in the Pacific Northwest. If you look at how the rain area is drawn, you can you know where the ridge is. I mean, it's right in there. I mean, this upper high is just uh, that's been there more often than not since the beginning of September. Just will not go away and shows no signs of going away anytime soon.
In fact, if you, I was looking at the radar that the nationwide radar, and you could see that ridge quite plainly, Joe. You could see how the rain just almost arcs right around the outer periphery. You see that right there. All right, you can see how it just literally just arcs right around that zone of high, that big ridge of high pressure. We're right now getting the rain from the front, the warm front, and once that lifts away to the north and east, we'll be right in the midst of that ridge and warm temperatures for tomorrow and for Thursday, and then the back edge, the where the western side of the ridge is, that'll sweep eastward with the cold front and maybe touch off a shower or two late Thursday night or after midnight Thursday into early Friday. Then that goes on by, and then we dry out. I saw on the chat board, I forgot who posted it, asking the question: it'll be like near 80 here on Halloween and 75 or so on Friday. And then was asking, will it be that warm, like 75 when we get to? I'm, I'm trying to find that message, and I see a couple of people thought it was my. I don't know why they thought my. Did I say anything about my birthday today?
No,
It's
I said at the end of the what we were talking about earlier with all the big storms that have occurred on this date, and I ended it by saying, if it's your birthday today, happy birthday. I wasn't referring to
no, it was not
Joe's
me.
birthday. Um, I was referring to anybody in general. That
Right,
if you had your birthday today, you've had quite a few storms that have occurred.
exactly.
Oh, and by the way, Ken Musillo, thank you for hitting super chat tonight. Most appreciated, Kenny.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
want to
where
thank it. I want to thank everybody though on the chat board. I'm looking at all these people here. Christopher Alley, happy birthday, and many, many
it
more.
ain't his birthday. He had a birthday in August, for God's sake.
And your birthday's not till
And
January.
mine's not till
William
January.
William Juber, happy Joe Rayo birthday again.
Yeah, it's not.
Anyway, so somebody was asking, is it going to get up into the 70s for election day? It's going to be a mild election day, in my opinion. Actually, it's normal high now is only in the upper 50s.
Well, I'll pull up the high temperature map right now on the screen from the National Sweater Service, and you'll see that they're going. They have generally across eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, upper 60s and low 70s.
I think low 70s might be pushing the envelope a little bit, but it is going to be a mild day. Not the warmest. I think we made mention the last week of weather extremes on election days past, presidential election days past. And I think the warmest that we've ever had it on election day for president election was for FDR. Um, I'm not sure if it was 1936 or 1940, 75 at Central Park. So we may be close to that, but I don't think we're gonna tie or break that. But it is going to be a balmy election day coming up. Unlike the election day, the day after election day in 2012, where not only did we have to deal with Sandy, but the day after election day that year, we had about 4 inches of snow at Central Park. So not
Right.
anything like that.
Well, Big Ridge building in the east at the moment gets flattened out as a little trough comes through for Thursday night and Friday with another one of these cold fronts where all the that this front is going to be producing a lot of severe weather tomorrow. Less so on Thursday to the west as it moves eastward into this flattening ridge. It just weakens, and there's probably not going to be much of anything left once it goes by. Another deep trough is diving down into the west, so that means that the ridge in the east is going to start to flex again next week. So we'll get a cool shot over the weekend, and then maybe another warm up into the middle part of next week until eventually the ridge does finally flatten out um, after around after the middle of next week. It does flatten out, but it depends because the models are trying to suggest that maybe some kind of diving shortwave into the Rockies from out of the Pacific is going to drop all the way down and cut off across the Gulf states, creating for what looks like a fairly interesting looking upper air in the longer term. However, I would be very cautious here about putting, you know, any kind of faith in all of this because I've seen the models try to go to a colder, blocky look over the last couple of weeks, and then it does, obviously it's not happening. So I'm sort of taking the attitude that until I get solid proof that this ridge in the east it's going to eventually have to break down, and they always break down. And it should break down soon. We've been in this pattern since really the beginning of September. So we're 8 weeks into it, maybe going on 9 weeks, and that's usually about as long as a pattern stays before it finally disappears. So
Right.
there are some signs that by the around the middle of the month that something is going to change, but we're too early in the game here. Rather see maybe next week we'll have better. We certainly will have more clues on how this is going to play. And in the meantime, when we look at what's going on at the surface, of course, big high offshore, west to southwest winds. We warm up here in the east. A deepening low that goes up into the western lakes. So we get that severe weather outbreak tomorrow in eastern Kansas and parts of Missouri and into Iowa. That low goes up into northern Michigan. The trailing cold front just dies out. The showers just disappear as they move east. Another high builds in, settles offshore. Another warm front goes by sometime Sunday night with some showers in upstate New York and New England, and then it's back to a west southwest flow for Monday and Tuesday into Wednesday, and then another front comes through sometime late Wednesday. And again, who knows where this is all going to go down the road beyond that, because we've got the models trying to figure out what, if anything, is going to be coming out of the tropics, and if they've been holding this system. Whoops. That is a typhoon in the West Pacific. That looked like a Category 5 when I just pulled it up.
I like the
I'll
name.
I'll go back to it in a minute. It was 40%, and it's still at 40%, so they haven't really changed anything there. And yeah, this is Typhoon Kang Ray, 18.8 north, 125.5 east. Maximum sustained winds are 140 miles an hour, 125 knots. The lowest pressure recorded is 931 millibars, and it is forecast. Oh, excuse me. It is forecast to pass south of Japan and north of the Philippines. And I guess it goes close to the coast of China. Doesn't quite make it up to Shanghai, but it gets up there. It's also forecast to weaken to a Category 1 hurricane as it recurves. That is the official forecast there. So uh, the tropics on our side, we got these, the lower the normal pressures in the Caribbean, Joe, and the ridge that lies to the north of that. If you want the pattern to change across the United States, you, in a lot of ways, you'd want to see a tropical system form and move up and out because that'll just eventually clear out the upper air pattern. On the other hand, um, you don't want a tropical system for the obvious reasons because of the impacts they might have to certain land masses. But for now, there's nothing out there to worry about. So let's do a little Briller Jeopardy, which I think you have.
I do have it.
Okay.
Just give me a few seconds here to call it in or call it up. For some reason, Scott last night sent it to me both as an instant message and also as a um, regular message here. I'm just trying to find it now. Da, 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 da. So where are we?
I don't know. Where
Uh,
are you? You're
Here
in
we are.
Putnam Valley. I'm in Blairsville, Georgia. And
All right.
this is Jeopardy.
So the topic continues to be, because we are so close to the presidential election, the topic is presidential trivia. And here is the first question. One, what five states has the most electoral votes? Electoral.
Also
Electric votes.
electric votes.
Yes,
Yes. So of course California,
right.
Florida,
That's right.
Texas,
Okay, you got the top three.
um, hold on. I'm just running my head through this. Uh, I think, well, New York still has like 20, I think 24, 25 electoral votes. So I'll say New York.
Actually, 28, but that's number four on the list.
Okay. So what's behind
Now
New
there's
York? I want
number
to,
five. Number five, there's a tie between two states.
okay. So I'm going to take a guess here and say, hmm. I'm trying
Michael
to, and
McGuire
in
says
my
no.
mind, I'm trying to narrow it down between, well, all right, well, why don't we let the chat board figure out those two states? It's not Georgia, Michael McGuire. I know that.
Michael was
Um,
already Georgia. You also said North Carolina. Um,
I
Macau, Maine. I don't think
no,
so.
no. I'm thinking it's either I'm trying to decide between uh, Illinois, Virginia, and Michigan. Those three states.
Okay, well, one of those three is number five, or the one that's tied with another state for number five.
Okay, so one of those three is correct.
Correct.
Um, so I'll lean. Well, Patrick Darcy now came up with Pennsylvania. I forgot about Pennsylvania. Uh,
Pennsylvania is one of the two that's tied
one or
for number,
two. Is it Illinois?
and the other is Illinois.
Oh, okay.
I think if you figure out Illinois has Chicago, Pennsylvania has Philadelphia,
And Pittsburgh,
and Pittsburgh. Yes.
right? And Illinois has Chicago and Champaign
All
and Peoria.
right.
Anyway,
So which six states have the fewest electoral votes with three each? So each
okay.
one of these six states has just three electoral votes.
Well, of course, Alaska,
Right.
Wyoming,
Number two,
um, hmm, Lyons, Wyoming, uh,
Grace. If you are in North Dakota, you said that's your state, you are one of the six,
North Dakota.
right?
Uh, should we check on South Dakota, Maggie P?
South Dakota, yes.
South Dakota.
I'm surprised a lot of people saying Maine. No, Maine does not
No.
have three votes. In fact,
Maine has five. I think Maine has five votes, and they are one of two states that doesn't give all the votes. It's not a winner take all state. They apportion it.
right. I think it's the other one is Nebraska, I think.
Nebraska, correct. Um, so I was gonna say Vermont.
Vermont is one of the six with three electoral
All right, so
votes.
we have Alaska, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and so there's one left. Um, I don't think Nebraska has a lot of electoral votes, but I don't
Um,
remember. I know they only have one legislative house. They don't have like a House and Senate. They just have like like one assembly.
right.
Um, Maggie P brings up Idaho,
Not Idaho,
not Idaho, and it's I said Vermont, right?
right.
Um, Nebraska,
No, not Nebraska.
not Nebraska.
I will throw you a hint. Probably this state's most noteworthy um, occupant spent 37 minutes online to cast his vote yesterday.
Oh, Delaware,
Delaware.
Delaware. Yes, but we like Delaware.
Yes,
It's a
it's
nice little. It's a nice little state. It's the first state
the first state. That's right.
and the last exit.
And here's the last presidential question of the night. What two presidents won the most states in a presidential election with 49?
49. Um, 49 out of 50. So I would say Ronald Reagan was one.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, who was the other one that won 49 states? No, I don't think Mr. Clinton won 49 states. Um, Reagan we got. Um,
Not
well, there
FDR.
weren't FDR, there weren't 49 states at the time when FDR was
That's right.
president. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's not it. So it's got to be one of the recent presidents. So you've got um, hmm,
It wasn't Trump.
no,
I
Eisenhower?
believe, no, it was not
Not
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower.
And I
If it
know that when
wasn't,
Trump won,
well,
I know when
what?
Trump won in 20, I know when Trump won in 2016
Hmm.
that he
Well, what
claimed
about?
that
Yeah.
It was one of the biggest
Oh yeah,
landslides there was nowhere
yeah.
near that. Not George
Um,
Bush, not Obama,
well, it
not Trump.
wasn't. It wasn't. Was it Nixon's second term?
It was Richard Nixon. That's
Richard
right.
Nixon. Yeah, his second
And in
term.
fact, in the second term, and in fact, the one state that did not vote for Nixon was Massachusetts.
Right. And who did he run against in 72? It was
McGovern.
George McGovern. Yes, that's right. It was George McGovern. Well, very interesting. Our CBS News estimate. I miss. I used to watch. There are a lot of groupies that watch election night and election night. I've always loved watching election night coverage, and I was a CBS guy, so I would always watch CBS. So our CBS News estimate shows that so and so has won the state for whatever this the state of the onion.
I
Those days are gone. Those days are long gone.
I had a lot of ambivalence during my checkered television career at News 12. Our news director,
Your
she,
career was not checkered.
well, I don't know.
You didn't have a checkered career.
I think I had a checkered career.
You
There's some
did
people.
not.
Hey,
You
look
didn't.
on Facebook. There were a couple of different sites that had uh, Joe
A
Ray was
checkered a
cool.
checkered career implies somebody who you robbed a bank while you were in between stints. I mean, you didn't have a checkered career.
I I never really thought of my career as
You had a good career.
I don't know. You really think so?
Yeah, you had a career. You had a very good career.
All right.
You made
Okay.
more money than I did. I mean, so
It's
I'm
only because I kept my and I always aggravated my wife. My wife always wanted to know what was happening at the TV station. I was never one of those people. There was always like two or three different cliques, if you
yeah.
that's the term, where they would always gather in the newsroom or in the hallway somewhere. All I did I came in,
You did
went
your
into
work
the
and you
living room,
went home.
I did my job, and I went
Right.
home. I never really
Right.
interacted with
Well, that's
anybody.
not, that's not the definition of a checkered career just because you didn't want to be part of, clique. I wasn't a networking type of person. I also used to come in, do my work and go home.
Well,
It's-
anyway, my original statement was I had ambivalence about election night. I mean, I was always asked, I was as my news director called me the accordion. I was the accordion. If something were to happen on election night and they needed somebody to kill 5 minutes, or if they were running heavy
right.
on election night, and I need to do a 30-second. Ask Joe. Joe will do it. Joe will fill. Joe will do whatever. But unfortunately, that necessity of having me there meant that I had to stay sometimes until 1:30 and 2 in the morning. I always got PO'd. The sports guy, they said, "All right, Walt, you can go home." 7:30, Walt was on his way home. I had to stay until like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. That was the one thing I didn't like about election night. But the thing I loved about election night was the food.
Well, yeah, you'd get fed.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I think Janine, my news director, Janine Rose, she overfed. I mean, like you would go into the break room. I mean, like anything and everything that you wanted: baked ziti,
All right.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, ribs on the run,
Yep.
uh, corn. I mean, I so
I wonder if the current owners do the same thing.
no, they don't. They don't. That's the
Yeah.
sad part.
I would
That's the
hope
sad,
that they would feed their crews as they can't really leave the building,
right.
unless you expect them to bring their own hot plate, cook food for themselves. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day.
And of all
Okay.
meteorologists, I agree with Leon of Lindenhurst because I got a chance to work with the meteorologists. I got a chance to work with the traffic and weather people. And I also, in my early days, got a chance to watch when I was on Long Island, Levittown, watching News 12 Long Island. And I will agree with what Leon says that Joe Chiaffi was the best News 12 ever had.
Well,
And I always was envious of you when you were on Pix 11. And I know the reason why. I mean, they gave you all that time on Pix 11 because they didn't have much to talk about on the
I
weekend.
had a wonderful producer. We had to fill an hour show, and they only had one reporter that they paid. They wouldn't spend the money, so they only had one reporter to cover the news on the weekends, and that was it. One or two, I forgot. Maybe it was two. Yeah, and you have to fill an all hour show.
They
So
gave
Nora,
me 90. They would give me like 90 seconds. That I would get like memos from the hierarchy. Please tell Joe to not go longer than 1.5 minutes. This is
no,
and meanwhile I'm sitting there at home on a Saturday night watching as you're going into a dissertation about the 50-50 low.
right, because Noreen gave me 5 minutes. I never asked my producer for extra time. Never. Very rarely. And because I knew I had always to have plenty of time. She would routinely, especially on Sundays, she would routinely come up to me and she'd say, Joe, she would always come like she was asking me for $1 million and she was afraid to ask me. And you know me, I'm very easy. And Noreen was great. She's a wonderful producer. And she would come up and she'd ask me, can you do 5 minutes? I really need to fill this. I got nothing to fill the show with. I just said, Noreen, just let I can go as long as you need me to go. Okay. And my old attitude was always, I get paid the same amount of money whether you give me 3 minutes or 30 seconds. So if you cut me down to 30, I never said this to her, but I mean, this was my attitude, you know, certainly where you and I finished, when they would occasionally ask me to cut my time down or do a little extra time. If they cut my time down, and they were always very grateful about it. I just said, listen, I get paid the same amount of money if I do 3 minutes or 30 seconds. It's no skin off my nose. I'll do the 30 seconds. The 30 seconds, it's fine.
The biggest thing with me, I was so conflicted, or they were conflicted. They had invested a king's ransom in the WSI,
Yeah, and then they don't give you the time to use it.
exactly. And then, you'd get these memos from people like, how come Joe is not using the fly throughs? Well, for goodness sake, the fly through, just to say tonight, well, here's what's going to happen tonight when you're flying through the Hudson Valley. That's like 40 seconds out of a minute and a half. I barely had enough time to do, and so I wasn't using the fly throughs. I was going just as quickly as I could. So either I was getting complaints from the hierarchy, keep Joe to less than a minute and a half, or how come Joe's not using all the wonderful effects that our machine can? And as my grandfather, my Italian grandfather, used to say, "Uffa."
Oof, well, by the way, we've had our 5 millionth radio. Our now, this is over the course of 5 years. We've reached over 5 million views. Just so you know.
Wow.
You know, I didn't think that was an impressive number because it was spread out over 5 years, considering that some people get 5 million views in one video. So, so
Yeah,
it
well, they
took
have to
us
do something.
it took us 1,300 videos. It took us 1,300 live stream slash videos to get 5 million views. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and I'll say this I know a lot of you are Yankee fans, and a lot of them are posting on the chat board. Yankees are already down 2-0, and all the Yankees are going down. Here's as this is from a Met fan perspective, Joe.
Hmm.
My hope is that when we get to the bottom of the ninth, the Yankees are down 3-0. They load the bases, they get down to 2 outs, and then here comes the judge, and the judge steps into the plate. Everybody at the stadium is screaming, one swing and we
And
could
he strikes
win the
out.
game, and he strikes out. I'm sorry, that's what me, a dyed-in-the-wool Met fan thinks or hopes tonight. We'll see.
Well, all right, time to go. I'm on the road tomorrow, so wish me well, and I will. We'll see about Thursday. I can't promise it because I don't know if my daughter wants, has something planned for me or not. So,
I
I'll,
hope I
I'll.
hope I don't have a show on Thursday because I'm going out trick or treating.
Oh God. Um, all right. Anyway, so otherwise, folks, if we don't have a show on Thursday, we'll see you a week from Monday. We'll see you next Monday. Okay.
I'm going
So
trick or treating in my Frank Field costume. I'm going to get dressed up in my best suit. Going to wear thick horned rimmed glasses, and I'm going to go with a pointer.
yes.
And I'm going to use the pointer. I'm going to tap on the door, and they open the door. Trick or treat. Either you give me some candy or I will wave my pointer. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.